What's up, horror community? I'm Stock, and today's video is going to be on Halloween Kills. Going to be kind of be like a review type deal, but not completely. Kind of just things I like, kind of things I just appreciate about that movie. Reason being, the reason why I feel motivated to make this video about Halloween Kills is because of Halloween Ends. It's because I didn't like it at all. I talked about it in my rant a little bit. I still want to go back and talk about Ends as a whole, and I also have to give it a rewatch still. But how much I disliked Ends made me appreciate Kills more. Reason being, I gave it the rewatch. First things first about this movie that I loved, guys, was the beginning. It was a flashback from 1978 based off the original movie. And I think they did a really freaking good job with this. I think you could mess this up, but the way they did it in Kills started me off and got me so amped for this movie when I was watching it for the first time in theater last year. I was saying to everyone next to me, like, this is awesome. I was kind of freaking out in my head, and it lived up to that hype, like 10 out of 10 for a flashback. It was like a 10 out of 10. The look of Michael Myers in that flashback, it really did resemble the original look of him. Not perfectly, but if you're gonna do a flashback in a new movie based off 78, it was pretty damn good. Another thing I absolutely loved about that was just the camera lighting and all that stuff. It really made it feel old and grainy. What I liked even the most about that opening scene was the Dr. Loomis tribute, because he is my favorite good guy in all of horror history. And I know you can't have him in the newer films because he sadly passed away, Donald Pleasance, but the way they tributed him in this opening was perfection. They had this guy who I think worked on the set. I don't know his name, but I think he worked on the set. And he like resembled Dr. Loomis a lot, but they obviously touched up his face and he played that role, and they did a voiceover for it, and just everything about it, like him, did Michael kill again, all that kind of stuff was awesome. I love it. I've rewatched it so many times, and even after my third full rewatch of the movie, I still love that opening scene, and it's still a 10 out of 10 for me. Going to try to go in order of the way this movie plays, about things I really loved, and the next thing I got to talk about is the firefighters versus Michael Myers scene. That, I've said it several times over, that I think that is one of the best visuals in horror history. Just like the burning house, the way he comes out, Michael Myers comes out and he got that weapon in his hand with the fire in the background. It's just such an awesome badass shot, and that's another thing I love so much. And just seeing his destruction, it's just like the way he just dismantles all these firefighters, lifts them up, slams them on the ground. Again, I mean, after seeing Halloween Ends and the way they did Michael Myers, it makes me even love this scene more, because this scene made him look so freaking good. So here's where it's going to kind of get interesting, because the first two scenes I talked about, guys, the 1978 flashback and the firefighter scene, 9 out of 10 times, people that didn't even like Kills, they like those two scenes, and they say like great things about those two scenes. But their issues come later on, and I feel like this is where it starts. So this is where it gets interesting, because here's some things that I personally like that I don't see everyone likes. So the introduction of Tommy Doyle, Lindsay, Marion, and Lonnie, the 4 survivors from like 1978, the night, them as all older and stuff, I liked. They had Tommy Doyle kind of describe to the people that were in that building they were at. I think it was the bar. They were in that building. He explained to them like what Michael Myers is, like what his impact was, what happened on that night for people that didn't remember. Because to other people, this is kind of like, it's still a big deal because it was a murder that night, but this is kind of like, 40 years ago, like this one murder happened. Some people, like, they don't think of that. But to them, to the survivors, this was a huge deal. So I liked him informing them on that once again and reminding them of like the impact it had on them. Even little touches in that speech by Tommy I really liked, like when he would talk about each survivor, like he would say like Marion or Lindsay or Lonnie, and as soon as he talked about them, it would show a flashback. To me, that whole speech, that introduction of those characters, once again, those returning characters, really set up that mob, like for the whole rest of the movie, which I liked. Shortly after that speech, the TV was on, they heard the news that Michael Myers was wreaking havoc once again, and the reactions by all like the survivors, you could see it in their face that they're like, oh my God, this is happening again. And then all the people that were just informed about it are freaking out. And I really like what they did with Tommy here, because he steps up in this movie. He steps up as the main leader of this group, and he immediately like knows like he's been ready for all these years for this guy to come back, and he grabs the wooden bat, and he's just ready to go. And then there's this one scene where they think Michael Myers is outside, and Tommy Doyle immediately goes outside, leads the pack with no fear at all. Love that. So here's a small detail I liked. I don't know if you guys even noticed it, but it's something that stood out to me on my third watch. There's a scene where young kids, trick-or-treaters, they're going up to the John's house, Big John, Little John, the couple who live in Michael Myers' house now. And they're doing a little prank where like one of the kids has like bit a razor blade, he's bleeding, they need their help. So they both run outside to see what they're doing, and then meanwhile one of the kids snuck inside and he's stealing the candy. But I liked in this scene that when the Johns were explaining to them, when they were mad at their little prank, they were explaining to the kids that like, do you know whose house this is? Do you know who lived here? Do you know what happened here? And I really liked that the young kids had no clue. They had no idea what they were even talking about. And I like that because it was 40 years ago, and young kids don't know that, so it makes sense. Another scene I freaking love, to quickly explain what it was, is it's after Tommy and Lindsay kind of break apart and they look for Michael Myers. But there's a car full of Lindsay, Marion, and the other couple that went to go help them look for him. And it's basically, I love this scene because of what Michael Myers does to them and like what goes down in this whole little scene. Some awesome kills. There's the one kill. First of all, I'll talk about actually Marion's kill, which was awesome on so many levels because it was such a tribute to the earlier films, the original. There's a scene where Michael Myers hits his hand on the glass, and it's exactly the same of how it was in the first movie with Marion. And then arguably, I think my favorite line in this movie is when Marion pulls up her gun, she looks at him, she goes, "This is for Dr. Loomis," goes for it, there's no more ammo, and then Michael Myers proceeds to kill her. But that was such an awesome tribute to him. Such a deep love for that scene. I think it's gotten me chills before. I love it. It's just so good, especially after Dr. Loomis and Marion's connection in some of the earlier films. He also has some great kills in this scene. When he kills the other couple, he kills the guy with the knife in his eye, which was great visual. But the one that really stuck out to me was the other girl she got a big gun, and Michael Myers is coming out of the car. He kicks the car door, and it kind of turns her gun, and she shoots herself right in the face. I remember seeing that for the first time, and I was like, holy crap, and that's another one that lives up so well for me. We'll give Lindsay some great moments in this scene. So she, while all those people are getting destroyed, she went out and went to go see if the younger trick-or-treater kids were okay, which are the same kids who pranked the Johns earlier, and they were wearing Halloween 3 masks, which is an awesome tribute. But she went to go see if they were okay. One of them were killed. So Michael Myers also kills young kids in this movie. Brutal. Fitz kills. I always like when they go out on a limb and kill a young kid because it's ballsy and it makes everyone feel something. But yeah, she goes out there. She tells the other two kids to run away because he didn't get them. And then she proceeds to have like an awesome fight with him. Back and forth. He pins her up against the car, all this stuff. And it's just a really good scene. Shows her running through, running away from him, and just really highlights her character in this scene for me, and how strong she is. And then, Tommy eventually gets to her and helps her. But it's just that whole scene as a whole, from the killings to that showdown with Lindsay and Michael Myers 40 years later after she was the little girl in the original. It's just really cool to me. I know a lot of people think that the legacy characters don't get enough spotlight, but those kind of scenes for me is enough. It's enough for one movie. I'm just happy they did it. And compared to Ends, and what they do in Ends is garbage. This is amazing, and this is actually aged even better for me after the third watch. So I'm not going to go through the whole movie because this isn't just a review. It's kind of just highlights of things that stand out to me and that I really love in this. Another element that I want to talk about here is just, yeah, I know I said it earlier, but the whole group, the whole cast of characters in this I like Tommy, Allison, Lindsay, Marion, Lonnie's son, who was Allison's boyfriend in the 2018, and he has a whole little changing arc in this movie too that I think wraps up really nicely. Kind of wish I saw him live actually in this movie because I really liked his turnaround and his will to help. Then they also do great in this is the whole death of Allison's dad in this movie. They bring up probably about 4 to 5 times, and they describe the impact of what his death did to Allison and her mom, Karen. They describe that impact like 5 different times. And then you look at Halloween Ends, not to, I'm talking about Halloween Ends again, and you look at the death of Karen and they barely showed any love. Like they barely talk about that impact, and that's something Kills did so much better than Ends once again. Basically, after all this kind of fighting stuff goes on between the two mobs, they kind of meet back at the hospital, and for the first little half or so of the movie, Laurie thinks that Michael Myers is dead. She then gets the news that he's still alive. She's freaking out, all that kind of stuff. So when all the mob people are back, they get Lindsay back in the hospital because she's hurt from Michael Myers in their fight. And Tommy gets her back. I want to just highlight this one line that I really liked, and it's when Tommy and Laurie are talking, and after she finds out that he's still alive, and Tommy says to her, 40 years ago, you protected me. Today, I'm going to protect you. And I just really, really like that line. This leads into the most controversial thing about Halloween Kills, probably the most hated thing I see, and it is the other patient, the other mental patient, and his whole scene of getting chased by the mob, leading into his suicide, which is a dark, dark scene. Everyone I've talked to, in real life, from family to friends to just casuals, whatever, hate this scene. They hate it. They think it's pointless. They think it's too much. They think it's unneeded, all that kind of stuff. I see that, and I agree with that on certain levels, but I also like this scene in a way because I feel like it works for Halloween Kills. To me, it shows the rage of this group, the rage of this mob, the people of Haddonfield, and they're so blind rage. And you could have gotten someone that looked a little more like his stature, Michael Myers' stature, except this guy looked completely different, like body type and all that kind of stuff. But it could still work because he wears a mask. Basically, the whole, everyone in the hospital, they think it's him, besides a few people, besides Laurie knows it wasn't him, and she's trying to shout over everyone. Karen knows it wasn't him. She's trying to shout over everyone. Tommy's kind of leading the pack. He's kind of blind rage for a while. Even Brackett's kind of going with it a little bit for a while. Until eventually, near the end, they both realize it wasn't him either. But the whole mob just doesn't care. They doesn't care, and he's just getting chased everywhere. And this guy's an innocent guy, and he basically ends up jumping off the building and kills himself. And even though Karen tries saving him, but people think they look stupid, but at least the main characters in this scene, they knew it wasn't him. At least they weren't stupid. At least they were trying to help too. But it was all these people, and to me, it showed the whole disaster of what Michael Myers is doing to Haddonfield once again. Is showing how much of a mess it is, and it works in a lot of ways for me personally. Again, I get it. I get the gripes. I get the hate for it, but I could defend it. I feel like a lot of other Halloween movies, it wouldn't work. But for Halloween Kills, and just the vibe of this whole movie, and all the brutal killings by Michael Myers, I think it kind of works. If any of you guys agree with that, let me know. If you guys completely disagree, I get it completely. And I do like the little fallout after that scene, and after Karen and everyone's mad about it, that wasn't him. Brackett confirms that's definitely not him. And Tommy says oh, how do you know it's not him? He wears a mask. And they kind of at least address that. And then Tommy says to Karen that he says, I messed up. And I like that realism too, because he's the leader of this mob. He's the leader of the crew. It's crazy. His mind's everywhere, and he addresses that he messed up. And I think that's relatable as a good guy character. Backtracking a little bit, I completely forgot to talk about this one kill in the beginning. It's when he kills that older guy in the house. It's one of the first kills of the movie. And after he kills him, he's looking for his knife that he wants to use. and he's testing all of them on this guy's back, like 6 different knives until he finds the right one. I just love that scene and like his curiosity of like, you know, he's so fascinated in what he does. And I think it was a great kill. Speaking about great kills in this movie, when Michael Myers kills the Johns, when he goes into that house, it's great. It's a great kill. It's a great scene. I think the comedy between the Johns works too in this movie. And basically, when Big John gets killed, he's got this gruesome kill. He like squeezes his head, his eyes are popping out. He stabbed him in the armpit too to start it, which looks so painful and different. But what I really liked about this kill was actually the aftermath. It's the way this guy right here displayed those two. He literally displayed both of these guys like the way they were in a picture together, and he had them like displayed with music playing while they were both dead. So creative and so good, and fits him so well. Basically, to fast forward to the end, because, you know, it's not a full review, there's a lot of stuff I loved, but to fast forward to the end, you know, Michael Myers ends up killing, like, he kills Lonnie when they try to go into the house. He ends up killing the boyfriend, Cameron. Crazy death, too, because the way he snapped his neck was pretty insane, and though the gruesome shots he was giving him before that was pretty insane. But they die, and Allison's still fighting. Then Karen shows up, and, you know, she takes the mask, his Halloween mask, and she's taunting him, and then Michael Myers is like, oh, I need my mask. So he follows her, and then she leads him into the trap of the mob. They all beat the hell out of him. They're all like trashing him, and then they, you know, ultimately think they kill him. And obviously that's not true. Obviously he springs back up, and he just dismantles everyone. This is a scene that the first time I watched it, I liked a lot. Still was iffy on the scene. Second time I watched it, hated it. Almost hated it. Really disliked it. Now I watch it again, I like it again a lot. He gets up after that, and he just destroys this mob of people. So he starts off, slices Brackett's neck, kills all these people. He's like showing each of like the visuals of him killing, leading up to, you know, finally Tommy Doyle. Boom, right there. They have a face-to-face, very nice face-to-face. He falls to the floor. My Myers just bashes his face, and blood shoots everywhere. And that kind of affected me because, like, especially this last rewatch, like, he did really freaking good in this movie. And he really felt like a leader. So to see him killed off like that, and to see him fail, it was tough. And then also to see Brackett die is like that was tough too. And a lot of people are like, oh, you know, they didn't use Brackett better. But he had a few great lines in this movie. And they still put him in this movie that we haven't seen him in so long. So I'm just happy we got him. And he put in some great lines. He had a line where he said earlier, like, you know, 40 years ago, he killed my daughter on this night. And, like, saying it, and then it led into Evil Dies Tonight after that. Love that. And then he said to Michael Myers before they jumped him at the end, like, everyone's entitled to one good scare, which is a callback to the original. And just having him in it, his presence, it was great. So I'm not completely mad. It saddens me to see an original character die off, but it fits for kills. And it was awesome to see this guy kill so many people and live up to that name of Halloween Kills. Unlike Ends does in a lot of ways. Does not live up to it. Basically ends off with him still alive. And then Karen went back to the house after she thought he was dead. And then basically the movie ends with Michael Myers going back into the house and killing Karen to end the movie. To end it. And that was a ballsy kill to end the movie with, which I liked. So that was a quick rundown through the whole movie. Obviously there's some stuff I left out for sure, but to sum up Halloween Kills, I love it. It's a personal high for me. It got a lot of criticism, but my thing that I boiled down to on this movie is him. This is who we come for. This is who we come for the Halloween movies, is Michael Myers. And this is one of his best movies in the entire1 counting remakes, different timelines. I think this is one of his strongest movies. Next to 1, 2, and 2018 for me. I'd say he's right up there with all those for the way he was in this movie, the killing, his presence, his looks, what he did in this movie. Amazing. following Halloween Ends, which is his weakest, in my opinion, performance. So that also, so rewatching Kills after Ends really made me appreciate it even more. But I already loved him in Kills. I still thought it was one of his strongest movies. But yeah, that's why I love it so much, is because of him. But I also love just all of the side characters in this movie. I love them all. I think they all played such a good part. And like a big part of me after the second watch of this was like, oh, they didn't use like these legacy characters better. But they did their purpose for Kills. They did their purpose for this movie. They made their impact. They made him and his evil and his impact on Haddonfield mean something. They all played a part. And for Kills, and for him to kill off like legacy characters, it freaking works. It works to me. It just does. It's a flawed movie. It definitely is a flawed movie, and I understand the criticism. It's a personal high for me now after this third watch, and I think it's going to stay that way. Another thing about it is it's so entertaining to me. Like, so I've seen people say it's boring. Like how is it boring? I don't think it's boring at all. Like, it just, like the other night when I watched it again, like the hour, I think 40 minutes is or the runtime, but it went so quick because this movie's just so entertaining to me. But yeah, guys, that's my things I love. A little bit of a review, but like things I love about Halloween Kills. Let me know if you agree, because there's not all Halloween Kills fans out there. So I'm curious to know. But all right, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Horror 31st. Ow. As for the famous Evil Dies Tonight line that this movie brought, worked for this movie, gives this movie its own charm in my eyes. Evil Dies Tonight is a legendary quote in the horror field.